officer corps and the generals of the Turkish army. Many of them landed in jail, accused of organizing anti-government conspiracy. Nobody knows the proof, nobody knows what actually happened. And then it was a very smart move of Erdogan, because he was supported by the secular Turkish intelligence, intelligentsia, because Turkey has a large number of educated people. For decades, Turkish youth, substantial components of it, have acquired their education from the prestigious European and American, in particular, universities. They came back to Turkey. They didn't like the military. I remember I had an argument with a Turkish intellectual who lives here in Laguna Beach. There is an artistic community there, he's a painter, I think. And he told me, "Do you like the American system?" I said, "Yes." And then he said, how you would react if you vote for some politician, and then on the next day you see that the American military have invaded the White House and have removed the president you voted for? How you will accept? So theoretically it sounds very convincing, isn't it? In practice, what those people didn't understand, now they did, but it's too late. And what they didn't understand was the fact that regardless of the roughness, lack of sophistication, if you will, on the side of the Turkish military, nevertheless, the secular system was functioning, the press was relatively free, and so they were, Erdogan was painting himself as a democrat. He was saying the bad military are, preventing you from expressing your opinion, and so on and so forth. Yes?
And on this line about Erdogan, Turkey, the car bombing that just occurred in Ankara, yesterday, and a lot of innocent people killed, and I hear that they're trying to pin it on the Kurds. So from what I'm hearing over here, do you think Erdogan is using that to poison the minds of people against the Kurds to be able to go after them?
Yes, obviously he does, but there is something else. The Turkish, and it works very powerfully against Erdogan, the division between the Turkish Islamists. The Turkish Islamists, they were led by two individuals. One of them was Erdogan, and the other one by the name of Fethullah Gülen. Where he lives, Mr. Gülen? Hello, in the state of Pennsylvania. And from Pennsylvania, he is money. How he is making this miracle, I can tell you. He is a billionaire, owner of many charter schools, primarily in the state of Texas. And the state of Texas, the management of those charter schools, they are expressing their deep satisfaction of the Gülen schools, So anyway, they were allies, Erdogan and Gülen. Then Erdogan felt that he doesn't need Gülen. And Gülen ordered his many sympathizers. He attacked Erdogan. He said he is not a good person, he is not a good Muslim, stay away, don't support him. And so this kind of conflict, and to a certain degree undermines the positions of Erdogan in the long term. For the time being, he is still strong, but his jails, are filled with journalists, with the people who at the time were supporting him against military. They're in jails too now.
So these charter schools in Texas,
Yes.
are those really madrasas?
No,
Oh,
they're not madrasas.
But they support the caliphate. I mean, they
Look, he's playing very skillful game. On American soil, he doesn't create any Islamic schools. For instance, because he's a billionaire, he owns schools, private and charter schools, listen to this, in more than 100 countries. And it's a very interesting combination. He visited only 2 years. For 2 years he was in school. And then he left, but he's extremely smart. Okay, and he's playing his game very well. And there was a Turkish authoress, a Turkish female writer who developed, a very good strategy, and she attended many of his schools, and she discovered an incredibly interesting difference between the way they teach in the United States and the way they teach in Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan, rich of oil, former part of the Soviet Union, currently independent state. The languages are very similar, For instance, I have seen with my own eyes how the Azeris and Turks are talking to each other, Each one of it. The same way I can talk with Serbians because of the proximity of the languages, And so in Azerbaijan, they are talking the language of radical Islam. They are talking against Russia, against secularism, and all those things. I don't know, maybe one day he will change the strategy, and when the conditions allow that, they will start doing the same in the United States. For the time being, he is very careful. Yes?
you use the term this evening, radical Islam, a lot.
Yes, I did.
Now, when you look at the Prophet Muhammad, maybe you can help me understand the history. But didn't he espouse some of the same policies that's attributed to radical Islam? I mean, with jihad and butchery and piracy to expand. I mean, we're all falling back to the Prophet Muhammad's way of teaching. Is that correct?
Okay, there is a huge argument between experts whether the term radical Islam, contemporary radical Islam, when the term radical Islam is justified. To put this in other words, is this any difference between medieval Islam or classical Islam of Prophet Muhammad and present-day jihadists, And there is no way of trying to reconcile the difference between those views, In other words, no, let me explain. Those who are using the term radical Islam, okay, all right. Those who are using the term radical Islam, right? They're pointing out at some important differences. For instance, Prophet Muhammad was very explicit on the point, his point, that Muslim shouldn't be killing another Muslim. And the radical Islamists, although they're claiming that they're devoted to him, you know, virtually they broke this rule when they're killing Muslims, and they killed more Muslims than anybody else. If you look, you know, what happened in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, and so on and so forth, many places. Primarily, they're murdering Muslims under the pretext that they're heretics, you know. And Prophet Muhammad's rule, definition of Muslim, is very specific, you know. You are supposed to say some words, you know. You are becoming Muslims, and if you reject, there is no way out of it. Once a Muslim, you are supposed to be a Muslim. But this is the fact. And otherwise, in many respects, yes, it's the same thing, you know. But in some areas, the difference is, for instance, there was an interesting observation made by a German Islamist, you know, who said that radical Islam is a modern time phenomenon, very close to Nazism. Radical Islam, if you take, it's anti-Semitism, you know. If you take, he mentioned several factors, you know, several aspects of it, okay? So, I'm sorry, it's already time. I could have continued, but I have to finish. Thank you so much for your...